Hare Krishna, everyone. Welcome back to the daily readings of Srila Prabhupada's books. My warm affection for all of you out there in cyberspace, wherever you are. Hoping you're safe and well and happy in all respects. The rare privilege of being able to associate with Srila Prabhupada every day, and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his eternal associates every day. So rare and so wonderful. This is the way to become attached to Krishna, and the more we become attached to hearing about Krishna, then automatically, without separate endeavor, we become detached from the modes of material nature. And that's not such an easy thing to do nowadays, because the modes of nature are pretty thick. The modes of ignorance are pretty thick. What's up and down, what's black and white, what's truth and what's not truth, is getting more and more difficult to discern. But here, we can be sure we're associating with what is true, hearing Srila Prabhupada's books together. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur had a very fond attachment to the Caitanya-caritämrta, which he expressed in this poetic glorification. He said, in due course, Mahapralaya, devastating floods, will inundate the entire universe. If you attempt to survive by swimming in that deluge, then do not neglect to take hold of Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, and Sri Caitanya-caritämrta. Or, if you cannot hold all three, then release Bhagavad Gita. If necessary, you may also relinquish Srimad Bhagavatam, but under no circumstances release your hold on Sri Caitanya-caritämrta. For this, if this one book remains, then the flood can do no actual damage, because after it is subsided, the message of Shastra can be revived from Sri Caitanya-caritämrta alone, it being the essence of all Shastra. Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda and Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. So we're in the middle of the Rath Yatra celebrations, and Lord Chaitanya and his eternal associates have come from the Gunjita area back to the temple to watch the Hera Panchami, the celebration, the drama really, of the goddess of fortune who come to chastise Lord Jagannath and all of Lord Jagannath's servants. So in that, during that festival, there's a conversation that's going on between Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Swarup Damodar Goswami. And at this point, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu requests Swarup Damodar to explain the glories of Srimati Radharani. They're talking about the difference between the goddess of fortune and Radharani. So we're taking it up at text 184, chapter 14, Madhya-lila, Caitanya-caritämrta. Being thus requested, Swarup Damodar began to speak. All the devotees of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu were very happy to hear him. Text 185. Sometimes, when Srimati Radharani is sitting, or when she is going to Vrindavan, she sees Krishna. 186. The symptoms of various ecstasies that become manifest at that time are called vilas. Purport. This is described in the following verse, taken from the Ujjvala Nilamani, Anubhava Prakarana 39. The various symptoms manifested in a woman's face, eyes, and the other parts of her body, and the way she moves, stands, or sits when she meets her beloved, are called vilas. Sri Damodar said, timidity, jubilation, ambition, respect, fear, and the characteristics of the left-wing gopis are all ecstatic symptoms that combine to agitate Srimati Radharani. Purport. This is explained in the following verse, which is found in the Vrndavana 9:11. When Srimati Radharani saw Lord Krishna just before her, her progress stopped and she assumed an attitude of opposition. Although her face was slightly covered by a blue garment, her two starry eyes were agitated, being wide and curved. Thus she was decorated with the ornaments of bilas, and her beauty increased to give pleasure to Sri Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. 190. When Srimati Radharani stands before Krishna, she stands bent in three places. Her neck, waist, and legs, and her eyebrows dance. When there is an awakening of the various ecstatic features on Srimati Radharani's face and in her eyes that are appropriate to a charming feminine attitude, the Lalita ornament is manifest. Text 192. When the bodily features are delicate and expertly curved, and when the eyebrows are very beautifully agitated, the ornament of feminine charm, called Lalita Alankara, is manifest. Purport. This verse is from the Ujjvala Nilamani, Anubhava Prakarana 51, 193, text 193. When Lord Sri Krishna happens to see Srimati Radharani decorated with these Lalita ornaments, they both eagerly want to meet each other. Text 194. When Srimati Radharani was decorated with the ornament of Lalita Alankara, just to increase Sri Krishna's love, an attractive curve was manifested by her neck, knees, and waist. This was brought about by her timidity and apparent desire to avoid Krishna. The flickering movements of her eyebrows could conquer the powerful bow of Cupid. To increase the joy of her beloved, her body was decorated with the ornaments of Lalita Alankara. Purport. This verse is quoted from the Vrndavana 9:14. Text 195. When Krishna comes forward and greedily snatches at the border of her sari, Srimati Radharani is actually very pleased within, but still she tries to stop him. 196. This attitude of Srimati Radharani's is called kutimita. When this ecstatic ornament is manifested, Radharani externally tries to avoid Krishna, and she apparently becomes angry, although she is very happy within. Text 197. When the border of her sari and the cloth veiling her face are caught, she externally appears offended and angry, but within her heart she is very happy. Learned scholars call this attitude kutamita. Purport. This is a quotation from the Ujjwala Nilamani, Anubhava Prakarana 44. Although Srimati Radharani was checking Krishna with her hand, internally she was thinking, let Krishna satisfy his desires. In this way she was very pleased within, although she externally displayed opposition and anger. Text 199. Srimati Radharani externally displays a kind of dry crying, as if she is offended. Then she mildly smiles and admonishes Lord Krishna. Text 200. Actually, she has no desire to stop Krishna's endeavor to touch her body with his hands. Yet Srimati Radharani, whose thighs are like the trunk of a baby elephant, protests his advances, and sweetly smiling, admonishes him. At such times, she cries without tears on her charming face. Text 201. In this way, Srimati Radharani is ornamented and decorated with various ecstatic symptoms which attract the mind of Sri Krishna. Text 202. It is not possible at all. It is not at all possible to describe the unlimited pastimes of Sri Krishna, even though he himself describes them in his incarnation of Sahasravadana, the thousand-mouthed Sheshanaga. Text 203. At this time, Srivas Thakur smiled and told Swarup Damodar, "My dear sir, please hear. Just see how opulent my goddess of fortune is." Text 204. As far as Vrindavan's opulence is concerned, it consists of a few flowers and twigs, some minerals from the hills, a few peacock feathers, and a plant known as gunja. When Jagannath decided to see Vrindavan, he went there, and upon hearing this, the goddess of fortune experienced restlessness and jealousy. 206. She wondered, why did Lord Jagannath give up so much opulence and go to Vrindavan? To make him a laughingstock, the goddess of fortune made arrangements for much decoration. 207. Then the maidservants of the goddess of fortune said to the servants of Lord Jagannath, "Why did your Lord Jagannath abandon the great opulence of the goddess of fortune, and for the sake of a few leaves, fruits, and flowers, go to see the flower garden of Srimati Radharani?" Text 208. Your master is so expert at everything. Your master is so expert at everything. But why does he do such things? Now bring your master before the goddess of fortune. Text 209. In this way all the maidservants of the goddess of fortune arrested the servants of Jagannath, bound them around the waist, and brought them before the goddess of fortune. 210. When all the maidservants brought Lord Jagannath's servants before the lotus feet of the goddess of fortune, the Lord's servants were fined and forced to submit. 211. All the maidservants began to beat the Rath car with sticks, and they treated the servants of Lord Jagannath almost like thieves. Finally, all of Lord Jagannath's servants submitted to the goddess of fortune with folded hands, assuring her that they would bring Lord Jagannath before her the very next day. Thus being pacified, the goddess of fortune returned to her apartment. Just see, my goddess of fortune is opulent beyond all description. Srivas Thakur continued to address Swarup Damodar. Your gopis are engaged in boiling milk and churning yogurt, but my mistress, the goddess of fortune, sits on a throne made of jewels and gems. Srivas Thakur, who was enjoying the mood of Narada Muni, thus made jokes. Hearing him, all the personal servants of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu began to smile. 216. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu then told Srivas Thakur, "My dear Srivas, your nature is exactly like that of Narada Muni. The Supreme Personality of Godhead's opulence is having a direct influence upon you." Sarup Damodar is a pure devotee of Vrindavan. He does not even know what opulence is, for he is simply absorbed in pure devotional service. Sarup Damodar then retorted, "My dear Srivas, please hear me with attention. You have forgotten the transcendental opulence of Vrindavan. The natural opulence of Vrindavan is just like an ocean. The opulence of Dwarka and Vaikuntha is not even to be compared to a drop. Sri Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, full of all opulences, and his complete opulences are exhibited only in Vrindavan Dham. Vrindavan Dham is made of transcendental touchstone. Its entire surface is the source of all valuable jewels, and the Chintamani stone is used to decorate the lotus feet of the maidservants of Vrindavan. Vrindavan is a natural forest of desire trees and creepers, and the inhabitants do not want anything but the fruits and flowers of those desire trees. In Vrindavan there are cows that fulfill all desires, kamadhenus, and their number is unlimited. They graze from forest to forest and deliver only milk. The people want nothing else. In Vrindavan, the natural speech of the people sounds like music, and their natural emotion resembles a dance. The water in Vrindavan is nectar, and the Brahmajyoti effulgence, which is full of transcendental bliss, is directly perceived there in its form. The gopis there are also goddesses of fortune, and they surpass the goddess of fortune who abides in Vaikuntha. In Vrindavan, Lord Krishna is always playing his transcendental flute, which is his dear companion. Shriyak Kanta Kanta Padama Purushak Kalpataravo Druma Bhumis Chintamani Ganamayi Toyomamritam Kataganam Natyam Gamanam Abhibangshi Priyasaki Chidanandam Jyoti Padamapitad Aswajamapicha. The damsels of Vrindavan, the gopis, are super goddesses of fortune. The enjoyer in Vrindavan is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. The trees there are all wish-fulfilling trees, and the land is made of transcendental touchstone. The water is all nectar, the talking is singing, the walking is dancing, and the constant companion of Krishna is his flute. The effulgence of transcendental bliss is experienced everywhere. Therefore, Vrindavan Dham is the only relishable abode. Purport. This is a quotation from the Brahma Samhita 556, text 228. The anklets on the damsels of Brajabhumi are made of Chintamani stone. The trees are wish-fulfilling trees, and they produce flowers with which the gopis decorate themselves. There are also wish-fulfilling cows, kamadhenus, which deliver unlimited quantities of milk. These cows constitute the wealth of Vrindavan. Thus, Vrindavan's opulence is blissfully exhibited. Purport. This verse by Bilva Mangal Thakur is quoted in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 2.1.173. Text 229. Srivas Thakur then began to dance in ecstatic love. He vibrated sounds by slapping his armpits with the palms of his hands, and he laughed very loudly. 230. Thus Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu heard these discussions about the pure, transcendental mellow of Srimati Radharani. Absorbed in transcendental ecstasy, the Lord began to dance. Text 231. While Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was dancing in ecstatic love and Swarup Damodar was singing, the Lord said, "Go on singing, go on singing." The Lord then extended his own ears. Thus, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's ecstatic love was awakened by hearing the songs of Vrindavan. In this way, he inundated Purushottam, Jagannath Puri, with love of Godhead. Finally, the goddess of fortune returned to her apartment. In due course of time, as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was dancing, afternoon arrived. After much singing, all four Sankirtan parties grew fatigued, but Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's ecstatic love increased twofold. While dancing, absorbed in Srimati Radharani's ecstatic love, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared in her very form. Seeing this from a distant place, Nityananda Prabhu offered prayers. Seeing the ecstatic love of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Nityananda Prabhu did not approach, but remained a little distance away. Only Nityananda Prabhu could catch Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, but the ecstatic mood of the Lord would not stop. At the same time, Kirtan could not be continued. Swarup Damodar then informed the Lord that all the devotees were fatigued. Seeing this situation, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to his external senses. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu then entered the flower garden with all his devotees. After resting there for some time, he took his afternoon bath. Then there arrived a large quantities. Then there arrived in large quantities a variety of food that had been offered to Sri Jagannath, and a variety that had been offered to the goddess of fortune. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu finished his afternoon lunch, and after his evening bath, he went to see Lord Jagannath. As soon as he saw Lord Jagannath, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu began to chant and dance. Afterward, accompanied by his devotees, the Lord enjoyed sporting in the lake called Narendra Sarovara. Then, entering the flower garland, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took his meal. In this way, he continuously performed all kinds of pastimes for 8 days. The next day, Lord Jagannath came out from the temple and, riding on the car, returned to his own abode. As previously, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his devotees chanted and danced with great pleasure. During the Pandu Vijay, Lord Jagannath was carried, and while he was being carried, a bunch of silken ropes broke. 247. When the Jagannath deity is carried at intervals, he is placed on cotton pads. When the ropes broke, the cotton pads also broke due to the weight of Lord Jagannath, and the cotton floated in the air. Ramananda Vasu and Satyaraj Khan were present from Kulinagram, and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, with great respect, gave them the following orders. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ordered Ramananda Vasu and Satyaraj Khan to become the worshippers of these ropes and every year bring silken ropes from their village. Purport. It is understood that silken rope was being manufactured by the local inhabitants of Kulinagram. Therefore, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu asked Ramananda Vasu and Satyaraj Khan to get ropes every year for Lord Jagannath's service. Text 250. After telling them this, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu showed them the broken silken ropes, saying, "Just look at this sample. You must make ropes that are much stronger." 251. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu then informed Ramananda Vasu and Satyaraj Khan that this rope was the abode of Lord Shesha, who expands himself into 10 forms and serves the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Purport. For a description of Sheshanaga, refer to Adi-lila 5, 123 and 124. Text 252. After receiving orders from the Lord for the rendering of service, the fortunate Satyaraj and Ramananda Vasu were very highly pleased. Every year thereafter, when the Gundicha temple was being cleansed, Satyaraj and Ramananda Vasu would come with the other devotees and with great pleasure bring silken robe. Thus Lord Jagannath returned to his temple and sat on his throne, while Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu returned to his residence with his devotees. Thus, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu showed the Rath-yatra ceremony to his devotees and performed the Vrindavan pastimes with them. The pastimes of Lord Chaitanya are unlimited and endless. Even Sahasravadana, Lord Shesha, cannot reach the limits of his pastimes. 257. Sri Rupa Raghunatha Padiyara Ash Caitanya-caritämrta Kahe Krishna Das. Praying at the lotus feet of Sri Rupa and Sri Raghunath, always desiring their mercy, I, Krishna Das, narrate Sri Caitanya-caritämrta following in their footsteps. Jai. Sri Jagannath Rath-yatra ceremony ki jai. Gunjita Marg ki jai. Lord Chaitanya's descriptions of Srimati Radharani ki jai. The loving conversations between Sri Damodar and Srivas Thakur ki jai. Gaur Premanandi. Hari Hari Bo. Okay. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports to Sri Caitanya-caritämrta, Madhya-lila, 14th chapter, describing the performance of the Vrndavan pastimes and the Hera Panchami Yatra. Text, chapter 15. The Lord accepts prasadam at the house of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. The following summary of this chapter is given by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur in his Amrita Pravaha Bhashya. After the Rath-yatra festival, Sri Advaita Acharya Prabhu worshipped Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu with flowers and tulasi. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in turn worshipped Advaita Acharya with flowers and tulasi that remained on the offered plate and said a mantra, Yosi so si namostute. Whatever you are, but I offer my respects unto you. Yosi so si namostute. Then Advaita Acharya Prabhu invited Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu for prasadam. Then Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his devotees performed the Nandotsava ceremony. The Lord dressed himself as a cowherd boy. Thus the ceremony was very jubilant. when the Lord and his devotees observed Vijaya Dashami, the day of victory, when Lord Ramachandra conquered Lanka, the devotees all became soldiers of Lord Ramachandra, and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, in the ecstasy of Hanuman, manifested various transcendentally blissful activities. Thereafter, the Lord and his devotees observed various other ceremonies. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu then asked all the devotees to return to Bengal. Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu sent Nityananda Prabhu to Bengal for preaching, and also sent Ramadas, Gadadhar Das, and several other devotees with him. Then Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, with great humility, sent some Jagannath Prasadam and a cloth from Lord Jagannath to his mother, through Srivas Thakur. When the Lord bade farewell to Raghava Pandit, Vasudev Datta, the residents of Kulinagram, and the other devotees, he praised them for their transcendental qualities. Ramananda Vasu and Satyaraj Khan asked some questions, and Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu instructed them that all householder devotees must engage themselves in the service of Vaishnavas exclusively devoted to chanting the holy name of the Lord. He also instructed the Vaishnavas from Kanda, as well as Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya and Vidya Vaishnavari. And he praised Murari Gupta for his firm faith in the lotus feet of Lord Ramachandra. Considering the humble prayer of Vasudev Datta, he established that Lord Sri Krishna is qualified to deliver the conditioned souls. Thereafter, when Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was accepting prasadam at the house of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, Sarvabhauma's son-in-law, Amoga, created trouble in the family with his criticisms. The following morning he was attacked by the disease of Visuchika, cholera. Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu very kindly saved him from death and enlivened him in chanting the holy name of Lord Krishna. Text 1. While Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was taking prasadam at the house of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, Amoga criticized him. Still, the Lord accepted Amoga, thereby showing how much he was obliged to his devotees. All glories to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. All glories to Lord Nityananda Prabhu. All glories to Advaita Chandra, and all glories to all the devotees of Lord Chaitanya. All glories to the listeners of Sri Caitanya-caritämrta, who have accepted it as their life and soul. Text 4. While Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu stayed at Jagannath Puri, he constantly enjoyed chanting and dancing with his devotees. In the beginning of the day, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu saw the deity of Lord Jagannath in the temple. He offered him obeisances and prayers and danced and sang before him. After visiting the temple, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would remain outside during the Upala Bhoga offering. He would then go meet Haridas Thakur and return to his residence. Purport. At noon, when there is an Upala Bhoga offering in a place called Bhoga Vardhana Kanda, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would go outside the temple. Before going outside, he used to stand near the Garuda Stamba column and offer his obeisances and prayers. Afterwards, the Lord would visit Siddhabukul, where Haridas Thakur lived. After visiting with Haridas Thakur, the Lord would return to his own place at the abode of Kashi Mishra. Sitting in his room, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would chant on his beads, and Advaita Prabhu would come there to worship the Lord. While worshipping Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Advaita Acharya would offer him scented water to wash his mouth and feet. Then Advaita Acharya would smear very fragrant sandalwood pulp all over his body. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would also place a flower garland around the Lord's neck and tulsi flowers, manjaris, on his head. Then with folded hands, Advaita Acharya would offer obeisances and prayers unto the Lord. After being worshipped by Advaita Acharya, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would take the dish containing flowers and tulsi, and with whatever paraphernalia remained, worship Advaita Acharya. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would worship Advaita Acharya by chanting the mantra, "Whatever you are, but I offer my respects unto you." In addition, the Lord would make some sounds within his mouth that would make Advaita Acharya laugh. In this way, Advaita Acharya and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would offer their respectful obeisances unto each other. Then Advaita Acharya would extend an invitation to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu again and again. Text 13. Indeed, Sri Advaita Acharya's invitation is another wonderful story. It has been very vividly described by Vrndavana Das Thakur. Since Advaita Acharya's invitation has been described by Vrndavana Das Thakur, I shall not repeat the story, but I shall say that other devotees also extended invitations to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Day after day, one devotee after another would invite Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and the other devotees to lunch and would hold a festival. Text 16. All the devotees remained at Jagannath Puri for 4 consecutive months, and they observed all Lord Jagannath's festivals with great pleasure. The devotees celebrated the festival of Janmashtami, Krishna's birthday, which is also called Nanda Mahotsava, the festival of Nanda Maharaj. And at that time, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his devotees dressed themselves as cowherd boys. Text 18. Having dressed up like cowherd boys, all the devotees carried pots of milk and yogurt balanced on rods over their shoulders. Thus, they all arrived at the festival grounds, chanting the holy name of Hari. Kanai Kutiya dressed himself like Nanda Maharaj, and Jagannath Mahiti dressed himself as Mother Yashoda. At that time, King Prataparudra was also personally present with Kashi Mishra, Sarvabhauma Vatacharya, and Tulsi Patichapatra. Text 21. As usual, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu danced jubilantly. Everyone was covered with milk, yogurt, and yellow turmeric water. Text 22. At this time, Srila Advaita Acharya said, "Please do not be angry. I speak the truth. I shall know that you are a cowherd boy only if you can wield this rod about." Accepting Advaita Acharya's challenge, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took a big rod and began to wheel it around and around. Again and again he threw the rod into the sky and caught it when it fell. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wheeled and threw the rod, sometimes over his head, sometimes behind his back, sometimes in front of him, sometimes to his side, and sometimes between his legs. All the people laughed to see this. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu whirled the rod in a circle like a firebrand, the heart of everyone who saw it was astonished. Nityananda Prabhu also played at whirling the rod. Who can understand how they were ecstatically immersed in the deep emotions of the cowherd boys? Following the orders of Maharaj Prataparudra, the temple superintendent named Tulsi brought one of Lord Jagannath's used cloths. Following the orders of Maharaj Prataparudra, the temple superintendent named Tulsi brought one of Lord Jagannath's used cloths. Text 28. This valuable cloth was wrapped around the head of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. The other devotees, headed by Advaita Acharya, also had cloths wrapped around their heads. Text 29. In ecstasy, Kanhai Kutiya, who was dressed as Nanda Maharaj, and Jagannath Mahiti, who was dressed as Mother Yashoda, distributed all the riches they had stocked at home. Text 30. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was greatly satisfied to see this. Accepting them as his father and mother, he offered them obeisances. In great ecstasy, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu returned to his residence. In this way, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, known as Gauranga Sundara, performed ecstatic various pastimes. Gauranga Sundara. What a beautiful name. Okay, we'll stop here. Hare Krishna. And tomorrow we will continue the pastimes of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Hare Krishna, Hare Bol. Sri Caitanya-caritämrta ki jai. Gaur Premanandi Hari Hari Bol. Okay, Abhay Das Brahmachari is manning the trusty open mic, scrolling down to see the ecstatic reflections and comments of the devotees, the listeners of Sri Caitanya-caritämrta, whose perfection is already guaranteed by this act of hearing submissively in a service mood the Sri Caitanya-caritämrta.
First is Sudevi Dasi.
Mm-hmm.
She says, Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna Sudevi Dasi.
Please accept my humble obeisances.
Jai, glories to Prabhupada.
Glories to Srila Prabhupada. And from Brian Phillips.
Jai, Bhakta Brian, Hare Krishna.
He says, Hare Krishna Maharaj. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Rati Manjari says, Jai Guru Maharaj.
Hare Krishna Rati.
From Vrndavaneshwari Devi Dasi.
Oh, Vrndavaneshwari Devi Dasi, Hare Krishna.
She says, please accept my humble obeisances and Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Jai, Hare Krishna.
Rai Kanu Devi Dasi says, Hare Krishna, dear Maharaj.
Hare Krishna, very kind. She just moved to the UK. She's going to make it her home. She's going to stay at least 5 years. Maybe more, who knows. Anyway, welcome to the UK.
And from Saloni Sachisundari.
Saloni Sachisundari. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Jai, all glories to Prabhupada.
All glories to your divine service. All glories to the sublime souls listening to the nectar of Caitanya-caritämrta.
Jai, all glories to the devotees of the Lord.
Krishna Premavati Devi Dasi says,
Krishna Pranamati, Hari Bol.
Hari Hari Bol. Hari Krishna to everyone. My Dandavat pranams to Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
From Anju Dima.
Anju Dimal?
Anju Dimal.
Dimal?
Yeah.
M-A-L?
Thimal.
D-H-I-M-A-L. Dimal.
Anju Dimal.
Anju Dimal.
Thank you so much, Maharaj. Your reading is so much hope for me.
Hare Krishna.
Roikanu Devi Dasi says, thank you, Maharaj.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.
And from Krishna Premavati, she says, it is such nectar for the ears to hear the pastimes of Lord Chaitanya and his associates.
Yes. Yes. When we hear these intimate pastimes, I'm so filled up I can't say anything. It's amazing. So satisfying. Whatever mood you're in, whatever's happened during the day, and you hear these pastimes, and the heart just fills up with transcendental happiness, isn't it? And it's beautiful. What can you say? Everything speaks for itself. Satisfies the heart so much that the devotees, they don't even have so many questions, and, that kind of thing. They're just in ecstasy, hearing. This is the goal. This is the goal of life. Hare Krishna. So wonderful.
Rati Manjari comments, she says, dear devotees, please accept my humble obeisances. Feel free to ask Maharaj any questions or share your realizations about the reading. Maharaj really likes to hear them.
I do, but on the other hand, I also like to think and I like to experience that these pastimes of these intimate exchanges and loving glorifications of Vrindavan by the topmost devotees of Lord Chaitanya, they're very satisfying. They're very satisfying. Not only satisfying, they make the heart so filled up that it just, stunned. We become a little stunned, speechless. Hare Krishna.
Krishna Premavati says, so true, gives solace, peace, and satisfaction.
Yes, absolutely. So tomorrow I have one of my Zoom meetings of the RRP, the Revisions Review Panel, and I have to be at the top of my game. So I have a little preparing to do this morning and also tomorrow morning. So I will leave you all now.
There were two things that just came up.
Oh, two more things just came up.
A comment from Sudevi Dasi.
Ooh.
She says, it is so beautiful to hear. I stop crying, at least during the time I am with you. My mom is in her last chapter of her life. It is very sad for me, but hearing these pastimes makes me forget for a while.
Yes, I mean, when our parents pass away, we should, of course we're going to feel, vacant without their association, but at the same time, we must remember that when the body gets old and it's time for the soul to pass on, then the body, it's a difficult situation. So when the devotee leaves, or a loved one leaves, they're actually getting relief, from a situation which is causing them suffering. So we have to think about that also, and know for certain that our loved one will attain a better state. I just one of our dear friends from India, his name is Caitanya-caritämrta Prabhu. He just passed away. He's been sick for a couple of years, and Vaisheshika, he's a disciple of Vaisheshika Prabhu. He used to come out to Govardhan every year, and here's what Vaisheshika Prabhu said about him. He said, "Dear highly esteemed devotees, Bhadram Te, Srila Prabhupada, Jai Srila Prabhupada. I just received a message that my very dear disciple and your loving God sibling, Caitanya Prabhu, has left this world. He had been ill for many months. The last time I spoke to him, a couple of weeks ago, he got out of bed and with all the strength he could muster in his sickly body, offered me his full dandavats, praying for blessings to remain fully fixed and chanting the holy names, even as he struggled to survive. I had many meaningful meetings with His Grace Caitanya Prabhu, regularly riding back and forth from Vrndavana Dham, as he offered his car and driver to me for all my trips to and from Vrindavan. I got to know about his life and his deep devotional attitude during these rides. All of his associates would say to know him is to love him. Although he started his practice of devotional service late in life, after pursuing a very busy life as an airline executive, he was deeply absorbed in hearing, chanting, and remembering Krishna. He used to chant 64 rounds of japa each day, and he strictly followed the morning and evening programs online from Sri Mayapur Dham, from his home in Delhi. We affectionately and appropriately called the small room he occupied in his roomy Delhi flat his bhajan kutir. Even though he was elderly, he spent time with us at Govardhan during Kartik, just so he could be close to the devotional activities. He personally did book distribution in and around Delhi, setting up book tables at Hari Om Dabba, a popular stop for tourists and truck drivers on the Delhi Vrindavan Road. The devotees in both Vrindavan and Delhi knew him well, as he was a distinguished gentleman who frequented both temples and gave generously to devotional causes. Knowing his mindset, I am very sure that Lord Krishna has given him a better situation from which to continue his practice of pure devotional service. I am so proud of him and what he accomplished in such a short amount of time. I am really missing him dearly and ask all of you to pray for his safe passage to his next sangha. With gratitude and affection, Vaisheshika Das. So he shows by this warm and affectionate remembrance how we should remember when a person leaves this world. Hare Krishna. And?
Comment from Rati Manjari.
Uh-huh.
She says, Dear Guru Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. I personally loved to hear about how Lord Chaitanya whirled the stick around and it looked like a fire rod.
Mm-hmm.
The painting of this is so sweet. It is truly amazing to consider that the devotees prepared all these paintings in just 2 months.
Yeah. Yeah, with the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, anything can happen. We shouldn't be surprised at anything that may happen in this wonderful movement. this Harinam Sankirtan movement of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, made sweeter and sweeter by Srila Prabhupada's austerities and affectionate dealings with all of his devotees. He worked so hard to translate and comment on these books. He'll be very happy to see how we're doing this every day and how all of you are there listening so happily and getting great relief from this situation the world's in today. Hare Krishna.
From Doyal-Nitai.
Doyal-Nitai, Hare Krishna.
He says, Dear Srila Guru Maharaj, please accept my obeisance, all glories. More on a technical note, may I ask which rule of thumb you go by to decide which Sanskrit or Bengali verse you read out loud during the readings? Thank you, your servant Doyal-Nitai Das.
Just certain ones are particularly sweet and familiar. If I read all of them, it would take too long. And also, because we don't speak the language, when we just hear the straight English, I think is nice. That's why we decided for the audiobooks, we don't chant the verses, just the English, because that way it gives a continuity for those who are hearing, easier to hear and keep their mind focused on the subject and the continuity of the subject. But sometimes there's a particular one that's particularly sweet or famous or that I like to vibrate. That's all. Nothing technical about it.
And one more comment from Krishna Premavati Devi Dasi.
Hare Krishna.
She says, all glories to Prema-Niketana Prabhu. My Akhi pranams to the Vaishnava soul.
Jai, thank you so much. He was wonderful. One time he brought this huge, beautiful photo, framed in a golden, beautiful frame, and he put it up above my door in Govardhan. And I didn't know about it. And I just came in and I looked up and I saw this gorgeous. And I had just gotten the tooth of Lord Nishingadev that's on my altar now, given to me by Janivas. And anyway, those two events happened very close together, and I feel very protected when I go to Vrindavan by Nishingadev, by the grace of Prema-Niketana Prabhu. We used to sit and talk for hours in Jagannath, in Vrindavan, Govardhan, Bhaktivedanta Ashram. Okay, that's it for tonight, everyone. Sri Caitanya-caritämrta ki jai, Samaveta Bhakta-vrinda ki jai, Gaur Premanandi, Hari Hari Bol. See you tomorrow night, same time, same place, same subject, more nectar, so much so that we can barely contain it. See you tomorrow. Hare Krishna.